Learn English through story. The cost of secrets. In the bustling city of Belgrade, Robert Hale was known as a man who had it all. He was the CEO of a successful tech company, married to a beautiful and loving wife named Emily, and lived in a luxurious penthouse overlooking the city. To the outside world, Robert was the embodiment of success, someone who had climbed the ladder of life and reached the pinnacle. But behind the polished exterior lay a truth that gnawed at Robert every day. He was haunted by a secret, one that had been with him for over a decade. It was a secret that had shaped his rise to the top, but also one that he knew could destroy everything he had built if it ever came to light. It all began 15 years ago when Robert was a struggling entrepreneur with little more than a dream and a handful of ideas. He had just started his company, Hale Tech, with his best friend, Marcus Reed. The two had been inseparable since college, their partnership based on a shared vision and mutual respect. They worked tirelessly to build their company, pouring everything they had into making it a success. Then, one day, an opportunity arose that could catapult their fledgling business into the big leagues. A larger competitor was offering a lucrative contract, but there was a catch. They needed to develop a groundbreaking software program within 6 months, something no one else had managed to do. The contract was a game changer, but it required an innovation that Marcus had been quietly developing on the side. Marcus, ever the idealist, was hesitant. The program wasn't ready, and rushing it could lead to catastrophic failures. But Robert saw the opportunity as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. He convinced Marcus to push forward, promising that together they could make it work. Reluctantly, Marcus agreed. As the deadline loomed, the pressure mounted. Marcus became increasingly worried about the integrity of the software, but Robert, driven by ambition, ignored the warnings. On the night before the program was due to be delivered, Marcus discovered a critical flaw, one that could cause the entire system to crash under heavy use. He insisted they pull out, that they delay and fix the problem. But Robert saw no option but to move forward. The contract was their lifeline, and failure was not an option. In a heated argument, Robert told Marcus that he was too cautious, that he lacked the vision to see the bigger picture. Furious and feeling betrayed, Marcus stormed out of their office, vowing that he was done with Hale Tech. Robert was left with a decision. He could listen to Marcus and risk losing everything, or he could forge ahead alone. In a moment of desperation, he made a choice that would haunt him for years. He submitted the flawed software, hoping that it would hold up long enough for them to fix the issues later. The contract was awarded, and Hale Tech's rise to success began. The software did work for a while. By the time the flaws started to show, Hale Tech had already made enough money and established a reputation that allowed them to weather the storm. But the cost was high. Marcus never returned, cutting all ties with Robert and the company they had built together. The loss of his friend was a wound that never healed. But Robert buried it deep, focusing on the success that was now within his grasp. Years passed, and Hale Tech grew into a giant in the tech industry. Robert became a powerful figure, admired and envied in equal measure. But the success that surrounded him was built on a foundation of guilt and betrayal. He often thought of Marcus, wondering where he was and if he had found peace. Then, one day, a letter arrived at Robert's office. It was from Marcus, the first contact they had had in over a decade. The letter was brief, stating that Marcus had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and had only a few months to live. He wanted to see Robert one last time, to talk about what had happened between them. The letter shook Robert to his core. He had spent years trying to forgive Marcus, trying to convince himself that what he had done was necessary, that it was the price of success. But now, faced with the reality of his friend's impending death, all the justifications and excuses he had made fell apart. Robert told Emily about the letter, and she urged him to go. She had always sensed there was something troubling him, something from his past that he had never fully shared. Now she saw it as a chance for him to find closure, to make peace with the choices he had made. With a heavy heart, Robert traveled to the small coastal town where Marcus had been living. The town was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the city that Robert had come to know so well. When he arrived at Marcus's modest home, he was struck by how little had changed. The man who greeted him was thinner, his hair grayer, but the spark in his eyes was still there. They sat together on the porch, overlooking the ocean. For a long time, neither spoke, the silence between them heavy with years of unspoken words. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "I didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice weak but steady. "I had to," Robert replied. "I owed you that much." Marcus nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I've had a lot of time to think about what happened, about what we lost. I don't blame you for what you did, Robert. I was angry, yes, but I understand now that we were both driven by our own fears and ambitions." Robert felt a lump in his throat. "I was wrong, Marcus. I should have listened to you. I was so blinded by the need to succeed that I didn't see what I was doing, to you, to us. I've regretted it every day since." Marcus looked at him, his eyes filled with the sadness that Robert knew all too well. "Regret is a heavy burden, Robert, but it's also a sign that you still have a conscience. You made a choice, and you've lived with the consequences. But what's done is done. I've made my peace with it." "But I haven't," Robert admitted, his voice breaking. "I've spent years trying to convince myself that it was worth it, that the ends justified the means. But I lost my best friend in the process. I lost the one person who believed in me when no one else did. How do I make up for that?" "You can't change the past," Marcus said gently. "But you can learn from it. You've built something incredible, Robert. But don't let it define you. Success isn't measured by what you have, it's measured by who you are. And who you are is someone who still cares, someone who still feels. That's worth more than any company or contract." Robert felt tears sting his eyes. "I wish I could go back, Marcus. I wish I could make it right." Marcus smiled faintly. "You can't go back, but you can move forward, live your life in a way that honors what we built together. Don't let the guilt consume you. Forgive yourself, and then use what you've learned to help others, to make better choices. That's how you make it right." The two men sat in silence for a long time, the weight of their past slowly lifting. When it was time for Robert to leave, Marcus reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I didn't want to leave this world with unfinished business between us." Robert squeezed his friend's hand, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for forgiving me, Marcus. I promise I'll do better." As Robert drove back to the city, he felt a sense of clarity he hadn't known in years. He realized that the cost of his success had been higher than he had ever imagined, But it wasn't too late to change. He could still be the man Marcus had believed in, the man who cared more about people than profits. In the months that followed, Robert made significant changes in his life and in his company. He reconnected with old friends, reached out to those he had wronged, and focused on creating a company culture based on integrity and respect. Hale Tech continued to thrive, but it did so with a renewed sense of purpose, one that honored the legacy of the partnership that had started it all. When Marcus passed away, Robert was there, holding his hand. He had kept his promise, and in doing so, he had found a sense of peace. He knew that he would always carry the weight of his past, but he also knew that he had the power to shape his future. And in that future, he would be a man who valued people over profits, a man who understood that true success was about more than just winning, it was about doing what was right, even when it was hard. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.